Yeah, what's happening? We about to bring that action. Gotta hold it down for my Seattle Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. We going beneath the waves. Get it hype, step onto the ice. Ready for some action. Release the Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. Going beneath the waves.
What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Beneath the Waves podcast, your weekly source of all things Seattle Kraken and beyond. My name is Matt.
And it's Heather.
And it's Derek.
And it's Alex.
And this is episode 6 of the BTW Pod. We'd like to welcome in all our new and returning friends. A huge thank you, everyone who has joined us so far on this journey. It still blows our mind that there's people that are actually wanting to listen to us on a weekly basis. We are big time thankful for all of you. We have an absolutely loaded show for you today with Heather's adventure to practice. We have some game recaps, our usual check-in with Coachella Valley, and our discussion around the sound table. We also have our first ever interview for you today with Phil Pritchard, the legendary keeper of the Stanley Cup. And before we get into the actual program, we want to give a big thank you once again to everyone who has joined us over on the Blue Sky. It is much nicer over there than the Twitter. If you haven't made the conversion yet, come on over. We are at BTW SEA there as well. And just looking at our little Zoom call here, which is great for an audio format. Heather and Derek, you're looking pretty snazzy over on that side.
That's because we are wearing some sweet Beneath the Waves gear, and you definitely want to go check it out. We'll put the link in the show notes. Just so you know, tomorrow there's 15% off everything, and next week on the 29th only, so Black Friday, there's 30% off everything. So that includes all of our Monty Mania gear, all of our Beneath the Waves gear. There's beanies, there's shirts, there's tank tops, there's even holiday stockings if you want to get started on your shopping. So definitely check it out.
We are a little light on the Kraken news this week. Not a whole lot has been happening compared to weeks prior, but we have our intrepid boots on the ground reporter, Heather, who went off to practice last week, and she has her field report. So Heather, what do you have to tell us from practice?
Yeah, so I was at practice on Friday the 15th, and a couple things I was looking for was Sprong in the country yet. It was Eberle at practice since he had just had his injury during the game against the Blackhawks, but no Sprong. He was still stuck in Canada with his work visa issues, but he did end up making it to Seattle that afternoon, and I guess he was out skating. So he's played since then. We'll talk about it. Really exciting that he's here. I would have really liked to see him, but it's okay. No Eberle, because like I said, he was injured at that game against the Blackhawks. He was racing Connor Murphy for the puck and just kind of, they got tangled together, and really there was just no way to either stop or protect himself as he was sent super hard into the boards. He got up on his own and sort of like hunched over while he was skating over to the benches, but as soon as he made his way down the tunnel, you could tell he actually needed a little bit of help to do so. He was seen on crutches and didn't play this weekend. Coach Baalsma says he's being reevaluated and they're still getting second opinions. So no real timeline there, but hopefully sooner rather than later. But we obviously wish Eberle the best there. Vince Dunn is someone else I was looking for. And honestly, he was practicing a bit before everyone else. So as we were like walking in, he was finishing up. So I didn't get to see all of it, but he still looks super tentative and ginger in his movements. Obviously, I'm no expert or professional, but even as he was getting off the ice, he was sort of doing that with caution, but he was skating, doing some shooting, and he's working on it. And again, from Coach Baalsma today, we kind of heard the same, that he's still working. He's still a ways away. We're thinking November 29th is the earliest date for him to return. I'm still hopeful for that, but I don't know. I think we've got a ways to go because he still has to go through no contact to contact and work on that. So I think it's going to be a little bit of time, unfortunately, for Vince Dunn. The other person that I was kind of paying attention to was Shane Wright. You know, he's kind of been struggling, and I just noticed that he was having a little chat with Coach Campbell before practice. And I think, you know, they have a lot of eyes on him and they're really trying to work with him. And we'll talk about when we get to more of the recaps, but, you know, he was held out against the Rangers, and I think and hope that he just kind of needs a reset. But, you know, I think he's having some adjustment issues. The NHL pace is so different from the AHL pace. And, you know, I just think he's too good to be in the AHL right now. And I just think he's where he should be. He just needs some time and maybe needs to be elevated to a different line. But I'm not super worried about him just yet. He's not really making like super costly mistakes. I think he's on a line that's just not very good. You know, they're not making any scoring chances either. Like the puck's not getting to him, not getting to the net either. So it's like he's kind of kind of on this spot where he's really struggling, and I think hopefully maybe moving him around is going to be better for him, but I guess we'll see what happens after he was held out and has a time to reset. But overall, the Kraken were excited because they just won the game against the Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks, so vibes were super high. They worked on the power play, obviously Coach Campbell drawing that up. They did some passing drills, which we had been super critical about their passing recently, so I was glad to see that. And it did improve, I think, in the games after that. And then at the end, as they usually do, sort of like a shootout competition, it was blue team versus white team. The white team lost and they had to do 5 jumping jacks, which was actually pretty funny to see on skates because they sort of just like waved their arms in the air. And it's super fast, so I couldn't catch it, unfortunately. But just imagine guys on skates sort of pretending to do jumping jacks. So that was practice.
Excellent. Now, a little current events here for our American friends, just to give you a perspective on things that are happening for Alex and I here is up here in Canada, we have a postal strike. Our Canada Post is on strike, so all mail, all packages. So those of you in Canada who order BTW gear, it's probably going to be held up. But luckily, here at Beneath the Waves, the mail never stops. Because what time is it, Derek?
It's a mailbag time, yo. It is that time where we answer your questions that you drop for us in the mailbag. First up from Leslie Solberg on Blue Sky. Why don't we score more when Gru is in net? Is this a thing that happens with teammate dynamics? Now, that is a controversial question, and people on Twitter and Blue Sky have been arguing about that in the past several weeks. Because of the differing performance we see of our offense between Gru and Joey. But a couple episodes I did bring this up, and I actually charted every single game that Gru and Joey played last year and how the offense did. That yielded a result of Joey having an average of 2.64 goals for, and Grubauer having an average of 2.58 goals for in the respective games where they were playing goalie. Whether it's a teammate dynamics thing, it really, like, half the people you talk to would say yes, half the people you talk to would say no. I'm of the belief that at this level, it's not that huge of a deal. If a goalie was genuinely pretty bad, then like usually once they allow a couple of bad goals, that might impact the offense. But the thing that we're seeing is just like a lack of complete offensive production. We're seeing shutouts, which doesn't really make sense for that argument. So I'm of the personal opinion that it's not really a teammate dynamics thing. Last year, we saw a 0.06 difference in the goals for between when Gru and Decord were in. So that's my personal opinion.
I feel like it's more like a Jekyll and Hyde type thing where like they know that they're playing with like Grubauer. I don't know why, but I feel like there's like that little bit of aspect like where they've played with him the last couple seasons, and it's like not intentional, but like sometimes they have the inability to score in front of them.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is this year, like, I agree with you. It's like 0 goals in front of Gru so many times. But like, if that was true, I think that also would have been true last year, where there was like a 0.06 difference in goals for per game. I think it'll average out more over the rest of the season. Gru had the injury, so I don't know. Once we see more games for both of them, I think it'll start to average out. The second question is from Gwen in Doubt on Blue Sky. If players had walkout music, what song do you think your favorites would use? And I think for this one, I'm going to ping it to the roundtable here and see what everyone's thinking.
So this question's been kind of my hyper fixation for the last day and a half since we got it in the mailbag. And I've just been all day sitting through my workday when I should be educating the youth of tomorrow of how to add fractions and things like that. But I'm like, you know what? I think it'd be pretty cool if Brandon Tanev skated out to this song. So I'm thinking of this as like we have WWE style walkout songs when they're coming out to do a shootout. My favorite, as has been documented before, is Jordan Eberle. He's been my day one Kraken that I've been stuck to. And I think that it would have to be something Nickelback. It's been known and said by him that he is a big-time Nickelback fan. At his 1000th game ceremony, Nickelback recorded and sent a message in. So I think you get a nice chunky guitar riff of something like Burn It to the Ground by Nickelback. There's pyro shooting on the bench, and Jordan Eberle comes out and slams home a shootout goal.
So for mine, I'm gonna go with Andre Burakovsky, and it's gonna be anything to do with being a broken glass. But just because it sounded funny at the time. The one song that came to mind after I did extensive Google search, and when I mean that, I literally took like 10 seconds and Googled songs about glass. Um, Blondie, Heart of Glass.
Excellent.
I think Alex's is hilarious, by the way. I love the direction you took
Heart
that
of Glass
with.
is perfect.
Okay, I have a couple honorable mentions that I thought up that I'm wondering your thoughts on. First up, shout out to the fine folks at the Kraken Pod, pardon me. I think for Vince Dunn, you do the Undertaker's theme song. There's the gong. They're labeling him as the Dundertaker. I think that fits in really well there. I think for Adam Larson, because he's the big cat, you do Eye of the Tiger. I think that hit pretty hard for him. Yanni Gord, anything by the Smashing Pumpkins. Turbo, Kickstart My Heart, because you got that rev at the start to get everyone amped up. Belligerent Bill, I think we go Shots by LMFAO. Lastly, I'm going to say Riker Evans, I think we go with Bohemian Rhapsody because Party on Garth. And those are my picks for the Kraken soundtrack.
And then our last question was also from Gwen, and it was music related as well. It was, what song do you most want to hear Benny Drawbars play on the organ during a game?
I think the most obvious answer is the BTW theme song, is it not?
Obviously.
Can we get
100%.
can we get like a crowd-based movement to get that in his ear holes and then hopefully we see it on his Twitter timeline?
I'll just slide it into his DMs.
Excellent.
Also, have you seen his whole list of like songs? Because one time he put out on, I think it was on X or Twitter, he put out his like spreadsheet of songs. It was like all in this tiny, tiny, tiny little font because there were so many songs that he's actually done. It's really impressive. I don't even know what to pick because I don't know what he actually has not done because he's done most of it. But I do know this season, and he started last season, he's playing through the Chapel Roan album. So that's pretty fun.
Hot to go.
He's done it.
I've seen Bowie dance to it. It was pretty good. Thank you to Gwen and Leslie for getting those mailbag questions. And the mailbag always opens up a couple days before we record, so keep your eyes out on Blue Sky and Twitter for when that happens. Now, gang, we had a pretty busy week of Kraken hockey. 4 games on the slate. We're going to break them all down here right away. But in general, what's our vibe check feeling like? How are we feeling after those 4 games?
With the my current vibe check for this week, it's feeling pretty strong. I didn't expect us to have a strong week compared to some of the weeks that we've had in the past. So with the wins that we've had brought in, and that loss to the Rangers, overall successful week. I feel pretty positive. So positive Kraken Canada. Shocker, 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 shocker.
I'm riding that train too because I feel pretty good about where we are right now. We had talked last week about really needing a good chunk of points in November, and I think this homestand was a really great way to do that. Some teams that they really should have beaten, and they did. So that's what I want to see. When there's a team that comes in that we really should win against, I want to see them win against them. Like, I know it sounds simple, but that hasn't always been the case. So that's what I want to see, and I'm appreciative that they went out and did that. So I feel pretty good about that. We've got some tough ones coming up, so it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the month goes. But for right now, I liked what I saw. I like some of the cleaner passes. I liked some of the fewer penalties during games. I liked the defense really kind of cleaned things up too. So I'm really happy about all of that. So overall, vibe checks are good.
Yeah, I think the sky might be falling with Alex or Kraken Canada having a positive reaction to this week. That's actually pretty insane. So the Kraken must be doing something right. Obviously, we whooped up against opponents that we should have beat, but we also had a really nice game against the Islanders, which I wasn't sure we were going to win. That was a pretty big win. The goose egg with Grew and Net against the Rangers is a bad way to end the week, but I agree with you guys that this was pretty much like you can't really knock a week that's 3-1. I don't know if it's going to be enough going forward, but they did the best they can this, and all that really matters right now is doing so we can going forward, because we go back and fix our losing streaks, obviously. But I'm happy with this goal.
Yeah, my hope with this homestand, the 6 game homestand we're on, is that we came out with at least 50% of the wins to take points home, and we're at 4 wins out of 5 games played so far. So we are exceeding my expectations. So in my book, that is a big W for the squad.
And speaking of all those wins, let's get started with our game recaps. Our first one was Tuesday the 12th. That was game 16 against the Columbus Blue Jackets, and it was a win 5-2. Honestly, we streamed this one, which was super fun. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate all of you stopping by and giving us chats and keeping us company. But we had a lot of complaints in the first period. I'm not going to lie. We were ready to sort of like throw in the towel. We so let this team dictate our moods. But they only had 6 shots in the first period. So we were kind of justified by that. They gave up 2 goals within 22 seconds of one another. So at the end of the period, Coach Bialsma called a timeout to sort of do a reset. But I think really what happened was at intermission, he really gave them, a combo that was like, this is not good enough, like get it together, because they came out in the second completely different. Like it looked like a completely different team. They had 4 unanswered goals in the second. And, we were kind of discussing our favorite goal of the period, but there were so many that were so good. But once again, that fourth line, making the opportunities. Cartier's net front goal was like this perfect combo of being in the right place and just like having the grit to just hammer it in. That 2-on-1 goal with Tanev and Gord was also beautiful. So there was just a lot to like in the second. And notably, the team coming back from a 2-goal deficit yet again is super impressive to me, because I just think that's what the team is going to have to do. They're going to have to keep coming from behind. And I think that's what we're excited to see, because last year's team could not do that. So overall, great game once they came out in the second, because it was a completely different team.
Yeah, I mean, this one was an absolute roller coaster of emotions. With the way we had been trending in weeks past, nice that we were able to mount another comeback. But I mean, when we were down 2-0, I think there wasn't like anyone that wasn't saying that like the Kraken was the worst team of all time. So huge to come back and beat a very poor team in Columbus, but you needed to win it. So
This game was the epitome of being a fan, and how the way the game is being played dictates your emotional level of dealing with the team. Because like by the end of the first period, I was ready to fire the entire team into the sun. Like 100%, I was like, let's get rid of them. Like, I'm done with this. And by the end of the second, I was like, this team is the best team in the whole wide world. So great win. Lots of roller coasters of emotions, but getting that dub, huge for the vibes, and just another gash into my 76-point prediction.
Of all the games in the league, I'm really happy that this is the one that we chose to stream. Vibes were all-time low by the end of that first period, and when the period started, I think it was Derek tweeted out from our account, "Why are the Kraken so bad, and what can we do to fix this?" And we spent the next 15 minutes just reading people's angry tweets that kept coming in and coming in, and then things turned around, and we started scoring, and we kept scoring, and we kept scoring, and vibes swung through the roof. So this was a real roller coaster, like we had said, of emotions in this game, but it was really nice to beat a team that we should have beat, because if we had lost to Columbus, I don't know what we would do with ourselves. It would not have been a pretty scene. And the win train continued into Thursday's game against the Chicago Blackhawks with a 3-1 win for the Kraken. This game was kind of the polar opposite from the previous game. We were very aggressive from the start. We were leading 10-3 in the first period, and it was a super nice change of pace. After the first 20, there were no goals scored. It was pretty defensively well played, so we couldn't quite squeak one through. The scoring opened when Matty put one into the back of the net off a passing setup from Oliver Bjorkstrand, Jared McCann. I said it was very Sidney Crosby-esque, because he was down on one knee when he smacked it home, and then he bailed out on his slide and smashed into the wall, and was super excited sitting on the ground, which was great to see. And in this game, with that assist, Bjorkstrand had points in 3 straight games after he was healthy scratched the week before. So again, Coach Dan's message, maybe it registered and he just needed that game to reset. So that was really good to see. Following that up, Jaden Schwartz brought the big PP energy with a power play goal. It was his 200th NHL goal, which was a very exciting milestone to hit as well. And then early in the third period, former Kraken Ryan Donato scored the only goal for the Blackhawks. And I mean, if it was going to be anybody, at least it was him. We had a just a little bit of a warming in our hearts seeing him score. It was almost two goals for him. He had one really close one at the start of the game when the puck took a weird bounce, but Joey had a wild stab at it that got it put away. Turbo put in the empty net goal to seal the deal, and that was his fourth goal in 3 games, which again just kind of blows all of our minds with how things were trending for him. And this was a very strong start to finish effort from the team. There is the one big downer on it that we already talked about off the top with Jordan Eberle taking that hit into the boards and him still being questionable with what's going on. So one downer moment, but overall, I think it was a really solid game.
Riker Evans, great game. I mean, he's been playing really, really well. Like, what a step he's taken this season. But he's just such a good puck moving defenseman, and he doesn't ever panic. Like, he looks so calm out there. It's really easy to watch him because of that. He's not, all over the ice. He just really knows where he's supposed to be. And it was funny because near the end of the game, I was like, gosh, Riker needs a star tonight. And then Eddie Olczyk's like, Riker definitely star, and he didn't get one, but I just felt really vindicated because I was like, yeah, he played so well. I also thought the passing was a lot better that night. Like, that was one thing I noticed because they had been so disjointed in their passes, and this just looked so much better. But I think really good effort all 3 periods. So that's really one of those things that I just took away as such a positive because we haven't seen a full effort very often this season. So the full effort of all 60 minutes was really nice to see.
Brandon Tanev, I don't know what he's eaten. I don't know what he's drank. I don't know how Tanev's ghost got inside of him and just really took over, decided to wreak havoc. Man's been on a tear. And that fourth line in general has been on a tear, and that's something that I'd never thought I'd ever say, because when the Kraken are 4 lines deep, they're very dangerous. And, when your first 3 lines can't really figure things out, but your fourth line can, that's something to be positive. So, definitely a positive game, another successful game for Turbo. Yeah, I'm pretty excited, pretty happy with how they've been performing of late.
And on the theme of depth and successful games for Turbo, that leads us into game 18 versus the New York Islanders at home. And I was actually at this game with a buddy of mine, and this was the Daniel Sprong return game. There was a line shakeup once the Eberle injury happened. So Burakovsky was up to the first line, and Daniel Sprong was in on line 3. And the spicy line continued to show out. Yanni gets his first goal of the season. It's arguably not his goal because none other than Brandon Tanev circled around behind the net and shot it off of Yanni's gut into the net, bounced off Yanni's stomach. So that was very interesting to see. The other goals came from McCann off a great set of passes from Riker Evans and Andrei Burakovsky. And that was a really sick shot over Sorokin's glove. That was really nice. And then the game-winning goal was Jamie Alexiak hammering in his famous hardest shot that he showcased at the Super Skills Showcase from the blue line that deflected past Sorokin to seal the deal, win the game. The Kraken only took 1 penalty in this game, and it was in the second period. Great penalty discipline this game. One thing that is kind of unfortunate is we did have 4 power play opportunities. I don't think we cashed in on any of them. We might have cashed in on one, but I also know that we got scored on in one of our power plays, which was very unsettling to see in person. I was very upset with that, screaming at the players and stuff. I think they might have heard me. And Joey, as has become routine now, put on an amazing show with some massive saves. The whole game just kind of felt like a kind of sloppy battle between the two teams because I think both teams were playing such good defense. But also a lot of the Kraken players weren't strong on their sticks. A lot of the game, a lot of turnovers, stuff like that. But yeah, that sustained zone pressure in the last 5 minutes of the game, leading to the Alexiak goal. Like, we held it in for like a solid, I feel like 4 minutes straight. It was just so nice to see us, bat it down, keep it in, dump it back down. And then that eventually led to the Alexiak goal. I think that goal also got challenged for goaltender interference. and it was maintained that it was a good goal. So the Islanders got one of those bogus penalties for the improper challenge. And then the biggest thing of the day, we won a Saturday game at home. Huge deal. What do you guys think about this one?
I think one of the things, I mean, yay, Saturday game at home. I always say that's for the kids because the kids finally get to go and see a game and see a win, and plenty of goals too. So that's fun. I think Berkey was somebody I was watching because in the past few games, he just seemed so mentally blocked. I think that's the only thing I can think of. He just was getting in his own head. So this game, he sort of broke out of that a little bit. So he looked a lot better, and I was glad to see that. And Jamie Oleksiak had a great game. Aside from the goal, he showed us that great shot that he had, but he also just was super smart defending. And he's one that has been taking the penalties that have sort of not been super great timing. And so this was better game for him as well in that regard too.
I really enjoyed this game. It was a fun one to just kind of sit back and take in. Lots of excitement going both ways, lots of big defensive plays on our end, and seeing Jamie Oleksiak finally just let one go. And he now has as many goals this season as he did the entirety of last season. And we're, what is that, 18 games in at that point, and he already matched his last year. So we can only go up from here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Matt, I think on our last episode you called for him to start using that shot more, and I mean, I think he listened to it
He must
because
listen. Fan
yeah.
of the pod.
Well, yeah, he's got that clap bomb, so you'd expect him to, utilize it a little bit more. At 101 miles per hour, you definitely could see him, scoring a couple more goals, and maybe that's a confidence booster that you might see from, a player of his level, like, start, taking chances a lot more. But no, this game was a lot of fun. I do need to mention that Joey Decor just keeps on doing Joey things. It truly is outstanding watching that goaltender and that player really come from where he started to where he is now, because I really do believe he's solidified himself as a number one starter in the NHL, and he just continues to blow everybody out of the water with his antics on and off, and sometimes literally lying on the ice. But no, definitely a strong win, and it was really nice to see Daniel Sprong finally being released from customs from the Canadian border. Canada Post finally deemed that he was eligible to cross the border, so it was a positive spin for that. And Spronger's back, so spring has officially sprung in Seattle. Yeah, I'm going with it. It's happening. But but moving forward, those New York Rangers came to town, and unfortunately, they disposed of the Kraken in a 2-0 win, shut out the Kraken during this game. Overall, it was a very competitive game. Playing against the New York Rangers, they're a strong team. So coming into this game, I didn't have a high expectation that we were going to pull off the win. But coming in with a couple wins under our belt, there was definitely a possibility. Grubauer's return to the game after his injury. Even though it was a loss, Grubauer played an exceptional game. The Kraken had many chances to score, but they just couldn't catch a break because one Jonathan Quick decided that he was going to play like he did when the Kings won cups like crazy. Surprisingly, the Kraken didn't take any penalties in this game. Shocker. No silly penalties, no stupid penalties, no, okay, this is probably a penalty and I need to take this penalty. Not a penalty, not a single penalty. It was shocking. I don't know about you, but no penalties is a shocking thing for the Kraken, and it's a shocking thing for us. It was another scrappy game, but we were honestly just beaten by the better team, and it just really showed. The Rangers are, in that conversation to win the Stanley Cup. And these are the types of games that you really look at and go, that's where we want to be, and this is where we're at. So nothing towards the Kraken. It was just one of those games. Shane Wright was a healthy scratch. He was replaced by the Firebirds' Ben Myers. Should there be any concern when it comes to Shane Wright? For myself personally, I'm not too concerned about it. Like Heather mentioned it before, it's more like just a reset, factory reset him, give him the opportunity to kind of figure things out and say, hey, we're giving you this chance. We think you're too good for the AHL. You'll figure this out eventually. It's gonna click eventually, so I'm not too worried about that. Bilesma did state that Wright's play of late was going in the opposite direction. So here's hoping that, like I said, being that healthy scratch will be a good lesson or a wake-up call for the young forward.
And I don't think Ben Myers actually played that much better than Shane would have, to be totally honest. Like, he only had 8 minutes and 21 seconds on ice. He was centering Tolvi and Sprong, and that line just wasn't super great. So I don't think that really was the answer. I'm glad Ben Myers played. I really like Ben Myers, but I don't think he was any better than Shane would have been. So I think there's that also to think about. Like that line, just like I said, it's not pucks are not getting where they need to be when that line is on the ice, and they're certainly not getting in the net. So I don't know that that's all Shane Wright's issue, but I do think, the reset will do him good.
I had a lot of fun watching this game. Yeah, it was a bummer that we lost, but it was a competitive one. And in the end, we just lost out to a stronger team. And I kind of went in expecting that that might be the case, so I didn't feel too bummed out when that was the result that happened. I'm just glad that it didn't end up being like an 8-0 loss. Uh, really good showing from Grew, with the exception of that second goal that kind of squeaked through. But compared to the previous performances he's had that people jump all over and get on his case about, I think this is a really strong showing for him.
Thank you for saying that, Matt. I tend to agree with that sentiment. I think you said that very well, and I ditto that. I think it was a good game from Guru, except that one really bad shot, but I think it could have been a lot worse. The Rangers are just full of insane, insane talent level, insane players. They're going to be a cup contender for a while. So 2-0 loss at the end of a, win streak week. I'm not really concerned about, but we're going to have to keep stringing together weeks like this if we want to make the playoffs. So.
All right, and that'll do it for our game recaps. I have a quick question for you folks. Have any of you had encounters with the Stanley Cup?
Nope. Sure
Many
haven't.
times.
Only the empty case that they keep in the Kraken locker room.
Ironically, living in Toronto and the Toronto Maple Leafs not winning a cup since 1967, I've seen the Stanley Cup a few times, so it's a sight to behold.
I've seen it once in a city like 25 minutes away from me called Kent. The Seattle Thunderbirds play there, and they brought it to their arena one time when I was like 12.
So last week, the Stanley Cup made a photo op visit to my hometown of Regina, Saskatchewan, and I made the trip out to catch it. And get this, it was the most Canadian thing ever because they brought it to a Tim Hortons. So you can go to Canadian staple Tim Hortons to find yourself a picture with the Stanley Cup. This is my first time seeing the Cup since my dad took me when I was in second grade to see it. But now, as a renewed hockey fan over these last few years since the Kraken came back, it really took more of a meaning to check it out. And this place was absolutely buzzing. The newest set of Tim Hortons hockey cards had just dropped, so lots of people were there using it as a card trading event. There were lots of excited kids in their hockey jerseys visiting with their parents, just coming for their chance to check out and see the Cup. And after I was able to sneak a quick picture with myself and my wife, I snuck off to the side to have a chat with Phil Pritchard. Phil Pritchard is the current curator of the Hockey Hall of Fame, and he is the legendary keeper of the Cup. He is the one with the white gloves that you always see during the Stanley Cup finals. Phil was kind enough to take a couple minutes to have a little chat with me and let me know what it's like being the man in charge of the most coveted championship in the world of hockey. And here's my interview with Phil. How's it going, everybody? This is Matt from Beneath the Waves, and I'm hanging out with Phil Pritchard. You might know him more as the legendary keeper of the Cup. Phil's coming through town here today in Regina, Saskatchewan. And Tim Hortons doing a little pop-up event, photo op for everybody. How you doing today, Phil?
I'm doing great. I mean, we're here. Everyone's got a smile on their face. They're trading hockey cards, and surprise, they get a photo of the Stanley Cup as well.
I was a little stunned when I saw, just driving through for my morning at Tim Hortons the other day, that the Cup was coming to a Tim Hortons here in Regina. How did that whole process kind of come about?
Well, you know what's great about the Cup? I mean, it's obviously the oldest trophy in professional sport, but it's the people's trophy as well. So we try to go to as many places as possible throughout a year, not only for promo stuff, but for plain old hockey fans. And Regina got the lucky straw, I guess.
Very lucky straw. And like you said, the room's totally buzzing here. Speaking of the travel, looking off to the side here, I see the big black case that the Cup travels in. What's kind of the travel process of moving it from location to location?
Well, you know what? It's amazing in this world of travel these days, especially with airline travels. It's a process. We obviously have to clear customs often. We have to go through TSA, just like everyone else that checks their bags. It goes in special services underneath the plane and that. But you know what? The airlines are hockey fans too, and they love it when it's on their plane and that. So we flew in from Toronto today from this, and So far, we got a great lineup. We got lots of smiles. We got lots of coffees and donuts and hockey cards. So what a great night.
It's an awesome night. One question I maybe have is we see lots of pictures of people putting very unique things into the cup. Do you have sort of a Mount Rushmore of unique things that have gone to the cup?
Well, you know what? That's usually reserved for the guys that have won it. And most of the times it depends on where they're from, of what they have. If we were in Russia or something, it'd be caviar. Mm-hmm. If we're out east, it'd probably be some type of seafood. If we're in Manitoba area, it'd probably be pierogies and that. So, I mean, to me, each one of them represents a lot to the player and their family. So I don't know if I have a favorite. It's always cool when the guys take it home and have their favorite cereal out of it to start the day.
Yeah.
That might be a good starting point.
Good starting point for sure. And then the one question I have for you, we always see you carting the cup out with your signature pristine white gloves. How many white gloves do you have in your collection at home, and how pristine do you keep them?
Well, you know what? I've got every pair I've ever worn. That dates back to 1988. So I'm thinking it's, I don't know, 400, 500 pairs I got. So the pair that I wear every year during the final, I have them tagged with the year and who won it and that. And then whatever else I wear during the years, I keep them as well. So I've got them all. I wear them during the final, obviously only for the playoffs, but the rest of the year I probably use them for a month and then go away. My pair I have here will be retiring at Christmas time, and they'll be bagged away with the rest of my gloves. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I just keep them.
It's quite the collection to have. It beats some of the things I have kicking around at home. But I really appreciate you giving up your time here. I don't want to keep you from your security detail obligations here with all these rowdy children checking out the cup. So thanks for the time, Phil.
Hey, no problem. And you know what? With hockey fans, we have built-in security with everyone, so it makes it great.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
So once again, a big thank you to Phil for taking a few minutes to have a chat with me and answer some of my silly questions that we had about the cup. Big time appreciate him giving up his time. And Alex and Heather, that's going to take us to what segment?
It's Desert Dialogues. We're down in the desert where the Coachella Valley Firebirds play, and there's a few games that they played this week. So we're just going to break those games down. Friday, November 15th, they played against the Abbotsford Canucks with a 4-1 win. Abbotsford scored first, but Yanni Niemann tied it with just over 2 minutes later, getting his third goal of the season. That's one player to definitely look out for this season, in the AHL. Depending on where the Kraken go, he might be a good solid case to come up at the end of the season. So keep an eye on him. The second period was scoreless, but Max Lajoie scored just 1 minute and 57 seconds into the third to give the Firebirds the lead. Two empty net goals sealed the win. Captain Max McCormick was back after injury, and the second empty netter was from the one and only Ryan Winterton, with Nick Coco making 20 of 21 saves on the night. His record is now a perfect 5-0-0. So for all you goaltending gurus, he is definitely one of those prospects that you're going to want to keep an eye out for, especially with Grubauer's contract expiring in the next couple of years. Is Coco going to be one of those players that's going to be backing up, is going to be the backup for Decord in the future? Who's to say? It's very interesting times right now. Lajoie had a 3-point night with his goal and 2 assists. Neiman had a 2-point night with his goal and an assist. And then Jager Furcus and Ty Nelson also had an assist on the night.
On Saturday, November 16th, they completed their little mini series here against the Abbotsford Canucks, and they won 4-3. That is the 5th straight win for the Firebirds, so that's amazing. The Canucks opened scoring yet again, but the Firebirds, this is amazing. And I literally had to go back and make sure my notes were correct because they only had 2 shots in the first period, but they scored on both of those. Luke Henman and Max McCormick were able to score on both of those. So it was Henman's first goal of the season. And that's Max McCormick having 3 goals in his last 3 games. So that's incredible. That gave the Firebirds the lead 2-1. And then Edward Saleh was able to put the Firebirds further ahead just a little over a minute into the second. But then Abbotsford had 2 additional goals in the second and tied the game. And then our friend Cale Fleury scored a power play goal with just 36 seconds left in regulation to make it 4-3 Firebirds, and that just put the game away. So Alex Stuska stopped 24 of 27 shots, and his record is now 2-5-0. So that's why we're talking about Nicholas Coco. He's just so solid. Stuska was up here, and he's a great goaltender. I think, they're giving him the harder games, to be honest. So don't take that record as he's not a good goaltender, because he actually truly is. If you want to watch the Firebirds this week, they play on Wednesday, November 20th against the Colorado Eagles, and then Friday, November 22nd against the San Diego Gulls.
And we're just going to break down some of the top Firebird players this season so far. The top player for the Firebirds is the one and only Ryan Winterton. He's played 12 games with the Firebirds this season. He's got 5 goals and 6 assists for 11 points on the season. Edward Chalet is second with 10 games played, 3 goals, 6 assists for 9 points. And then the one and only Yager Furcus, 12 games played, 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. It's kind of crazy when you actually look at those 3 players. 2 of those players were playing in the CHL last season. Ryan Winterton was really chomping at the bit to break the NHL roster. It is a great time to be a Kraken fan when you look at their prospect pool. We were talking actually before we started recording, the depth that we do have in the minors, especially in like the CHL, is damning. It's incredible what we have there, and it's definitely exciting to watch what they're what's going to come of these players when they eventually make the jump over to the Firebirds and then eventually make the jump over to the Kraken. Definitely a positive way to look at things moving forward when it comes to our prospect pool.
And that'll take us to our weekly segment of the Puget Sound Table. Our weekly recap of all things outside of the Kraken landscape. We're starting somewhat Kraken adjacent on this one with Sound Table Talk number 1, which I have called Yeetgate. So last week, the Minnesota Wild social team posted a video of their 3 stars coming out and tossing stuffed fish into the crowd following their win over the Canadiens. This video did not sit particularly well with Seattle Kraken fans, who have had the fish eating as part of their team culture since day one. And I'm curious, especially those right there in Seattle, how do we feel about this? Where do we stand on Yeetgate?
I think everyone knows where I stand on Yeetgate right now, okay? Because I got in a very heated debate on Twitter with a Minnesota Wild fan, and they were completely unhinged, and just saying some crazy stuff. But I didn't really get into that. I didn't dive. I didn't get low. Okay, I stayed high. But the gist of it is that in Minnesota, I learned apparently they do have fish there. So now I'm not as upset about them taking it. At first I was like, wait, I thought Seattle's the only place that had fish. But now that I know Minnesota also does, now I'm less upset about it. But I was very upset at first. What about you guys?
I think one of the arguments was that, fishing is big in their hockey team. And I just keep thinking, if it is, you should have been doing this from the very beginning, like we have. But ultimately, they can duplicate, but ours is better. So that's really all that matters to me.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So, you weren't the original. You're just a carbon copy. You're never going to be as good as Seattle. So hate to break it to you. Go eat your fish, but it's never going to be the same.
I did like after the November 16th game, the Kraken social media team put out pictures of our fish eaters of, I think it was Big Rig, Jared McCann, and Yanni Gord. And their caption was, often imitated, never duplicated, OG fish eats only. So just a little subtle dig. But I did like, sitting back and seeing some of the dumpster fire going down, especially Derek popping off and trying to put people in their lane.
Also, to that one unhinged Minnesota Wild fan, have fun being a first round exit until the end of time. But yep, anyway.
Sound table topic number 2. The PWHL is coming to Seattle. Kind of. On Monday, the PWHL announced their PWHL Takeover Tour. From January to March, the league will be making stops in 8 neutral site cities. These cities are Seattle, Vancouver, Denver, Quebec City, Buffalo, Raleigh, Detroit, and St. Louis. The Seattle game is taking place on January 5th at Climate Pledge Arena, and it'll feature the Boston Fleet taking on the Montreal Victoire, with tickets going on sale this Friday. Could this be the PWHL's way of testing out potential markets for their recently announced expansion plans? How do we feel?
100% that's what they're doing. We already know Seattle's in the mix, so just the fact that they're coming here really solidifies that. So if you're able to go, like, let's pack that arena. Let's make sure they know we want women's hockey here. Just really, it's a really important game if you can attend, if you're here in Seattle or any of the 8 cities.
I'm super pumped for this. I think it's going to be a sellout crowd. I really do. It's just showing you how much everybody wants this, and how there's so many cities through Canada and the United States that want a PWHL hockey team. And so I'm so excited for this, and I'm really jealous for everybody that's going to be in Seattle that gets to watch this game. I cannot get tickets even up here, so enjoy it. Definitely get tickets if you can.
I do remember on our last pod talking about how they're not really going to be focused on expansion out this far west yet with like Vancouver and Seattle. It is really nice to see Vancouver and Seattle both on this list, which to me, I mean, it kind of feels like a top priority type list. But I could be wrong. Maybe they're just trying to go around and drum up support for the Eastern teams, and it's just still not really practical to have Western teams. But I don't know. I mean, it definitely could mean that Western teams are in the fold pretty soon. I don't know.
I did put as well here a little bonus sound. So maybe we'll put like a half little trumpet squeak for the bonus sound. That the PWHL announced some updates to their rules and how they're going to play the game and things like that. So they have had different rules from NHL hockey in the past. One thing that they have is the jailbreak rule. So if you score a shorthanded goal, it's your get out of jail card for your person who had that penalty, which I always thought was pretty neat. Their new rule is called the no escape rule. And under this rule, the same players who are on the ice when a team that committed the penalty, when they're on the ice, they have to start the penalty kill together. So in the grand scheme, this is kind of similar to how if you ice the puck, you can't go off on a line change. Just another little something to keep it new and exciting. Sound table topic number 3. This is some breaking news today. Boston Bruins head coach Jim Montgomery has been fired by the team. In his time with the Bruins, he gathered a record of 120 wins, 41 losses, and 23 overtime losses for a points percentage of 0.715. Now, with this firing, every Jack Adams Award nominee from 2023 has been fired from their club. So we'll pour one out for Mr. Montgomery. Was anyone shocked that this was the first axe to fall?
I think I just never expect Boston to I didn't expect them to be the one to fire first, but otherwise, I don't know.
Absolutely wild stat. I think that every Jack Adams Award nominee from 2023 has been fired. That is just unreal. It just free my boy Hack, also, yeah, just free my boy Hack. I think, Hack still got a bad rap. Okay. Head coaches just get treated like absolute trash in this league. Okay. And in a few years, that might be what happens to Bylsma. Like, this league is just so, revolving door with coaches. It's disrespectful, man.
Never. I'm Disco Dan till I die.
Honestly, it's shocking that the Boston Bruins were the team that, made the original cut on this. But I'm going to support Derek on this one. Cue shock sounds, because it's shocking. No, like the fact that, Montgomery is the one that gets the axe in this is shocking, because he's playing with whatever he has given to him.
And he's already shown you that he's been such a good coach too.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. But it's a general manager issue. And usually what happens is when you fire a coach and you bring in your own coach and then you fire him again, chances are you're out of options. So GM is probably at this point, Boston's GM is definitely in this situation where he's like, Well, this is my last chance because he's done after this, and but completely shocked it was the Bruins because it's the Bruins. Like you'd never expect something like this from them.
Imagine having a GM on the hot seat after a coach firing.
Wonder what
Couldn't
that's like.
yeah, it couldn't be
That's
me.
shocking.
Our next soundtable topic number 4. Maple Leafs forward Ryan Reeves was suspended on Sunday for 5 games by the Department of Player Safety following an illegal hit to the head on Oilers defenseman Darnell Nurse. This was a pretty brutal hit. If you saw the highlights, Nurse was skating behind the net to bring the puck out, and Reeves just obliterated him. There's one picture that was on Twitter where Nurse's head was backwards on his body. He got hit so hard and had that much whiplash. This is the 4th suspension of Reeves' NHL career, and he will forfeit about $35,000 of his salary to the Players Emergency Assistance Fund, which I just included that part because that's not something that I knew existed as part of the fines and punishment of that fund.
Yeah, that was a wicked hit. We were watching that game live here, and as soon as I saw that hit, my first initial thought was that's a suspension. And you know what? The more I keep watching it, like yes, it's an illegal hit. It was a hit to the head, but Darnell Nurse is a tall human being. Ryan Reeves is not. So it was kind of like the perfect terrible recipe that was going to happen. And you look at it even more. Um, Under the assumption that Ryan Reeves is coming in for the hit, he may have thought that Nurse is going to skate a couple extra strides, and he doesn't, so he clips him at the wrong angle. Regardless, it's a suspension. 5 games, I think, is relatively. I was honestly thinking it could have been 10, just because he's a reoccurring offender. But 5 games is it's a good the Department of Player Safety actually got one right this time. And so, let's give it to George Peros and his, merry men on doing something right for a change.
That was actually my first thought, like, oh, they gave him a suspension and not just 1 game, not just a little slap on the wrist. So I'm happy for that because it was just a really brutal hit.
Soundtable topic number 5. Connor McDavid has recorded his 1,000th point last week. He is now the 4th fastest at 659 games played and 4th youngest at 27 years and 306 days old to achieve this feat. So that Connor McDavid kid, I guess he's pretty good at hockey, hey?
Wait, the third fastest is Riker Evans, right?
Oh, it will be.
Okay.
It will be. And as we always have been doing with our sound table, our last topic is Ovi Record Watch. After this, or at this point in recording, he has recorded 868 goals. He has 29 goals to go. Unfortunately, in yesterday's game against Utah, he had to leave early for a knee-on-knee hit. It was just kind of a rough run-in that he had with the Utah player. And this morning it was announced that he's being ruled out week to week. So he's going to have to wait on crushing that record for a little while longer. One tweet that I saw that I wanted to point out is from Dan Riccio. I'm going to assume that it's pronounced of Sportsnet on Twitter. Said, "Forget just breaking Gretzky's record. Ovi's chase has a new twist. Can he do it in fewer games than the Great One? If he scores 29 more goals in the next 44 games, he will hit 895 in fewer games that it took Gretzky." So a little extra ticking clock on there.
I propose that we don't play any hockey until he gets back, because I've been thoroughly enjoying watching him just play like the Alexander Ovechkin from like his youth. Like something about him this season where he's like, I'm not a 37-year-old man. I'm like 25. And that's what we're kind of witnessing this year. Like he's just ready to go, and he wants to break this record so bad. So the fact that he's injured, I just propose we just don't play hockey until he gets better.
I mean, the Kraken couldn't lose, so I'm down.
And that'll do it for the sound table this week. Hey, Heather, do you want to let us know what we have on the slate for this upcoming week?
I would love to. So Wednesday, the 20th, the Kraken are playing their last game of this homestand against the Nashville Predators. It's also Hockey Fights Cancer Night. So if you are going to that game, you'll get one of those beautiful purple beanies. And Saturday, the 23rd, the Kraken will go on the road and play against the Los Angeles Kings. And that is a matinee game starting at 1 p.m. Pacific time. There are no streams from us this week, sad face. but we will be back soon.
And Derek, if people want to follow along with us on this journey, where might they do that?
They can do that on every major social media platform and podcasting app of their choice. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube. Check out the store, and please drop a follow and a 5-star review on the podcast app of your choice. Now, in terms of what to type in to get to us on any platform, it's a little complicated, okay? But sit, BTW, sit. Good SEA, okay? BTW SEA, good SEA. BTW SEA is where you find us.
Gold star for you, Derek. Gold star for you. Thanks for hanging out tonight, everybody. Thanks everyone for listening. We will see you next week.
Going beneath the waves.